introduce a new model that's going to help us prioritize belonging. In the book, we respectfully challenge Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You probably remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He identified 6 needs that you and I have. But right in the middle, he stuck belonging. And as we know, it needs more than just a third-tier placement. So to unpack this model, I'm going to use a story, but at the bottom there is you. And to unpack this, we're going to use the story of Chris McCandless. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his story. Those of you who aren't, Chris McCandless grew up in Atlanta. He graduated at Emory University. And then he just wanted to detach from society. And so he just hiked across the US and finally found himself in the middle of Alaska, where he lived in this abandoned bus in the middle of nowhere for a number of months. And so he, initially, the core need he had along his journey was to live. He had to take all these odd jobs so that he could have money to find food, water, and shelter. He had to take care of that very initial and urgent need that is to live. But when he got out in the wilderness, his goal was to just live on his own and live off the land. And he had very minimal supplies. And so what he was trying to do, he wanted to learn. He wanted to learn about himself. He wanted to figure out how far he could push him. Learning is a core a need for you and I, because when we were all infants, we had to learn the language of our tribes that we could then communicate our needs. So learning is a core need for all of us. But here's the one need that Chris never quite satisfied, but he did realize it. Chris was out in the wilderness on the abandoned bus for about 6 months, and then he ingested something that didn't agree with him, and he became very, very ill, and he became very, very thin and frail, and he knew he needed some help eventually. And so he hiked back along the trail that he came, and he got to the river that he originally had crossed, but at that point it was really high, and it was flowing a lot faster, and he was so weak he couldn't cross it. So dejected, he went back to the bus, and he knew these were kind of the final moments of his life, and he's sitting in the back of the bus, and he's looking out across that gorgeous landscape that is Alaska, and he had this epiphany. There he was all alone. He thought that's what he wanted. He was a big introvert and thought, yes, I'm finally doing what I want. But in those final moments, these are the final words that he penned in his journal. He said, "Happiness is only real when shared." He knew in that moment that people pine for people. No matter how introverted you are, we pine for people, and it's all about connection. So that final and most significant need that you and I have is to connect, is our community, is our connection with others. So we made it look like a Wi-Fi signal so that the next time you connect to your devices, that'll be your reminder to go connect with a human.